I have plenty more questions. I just think, can you at all address those? You're the director.
Have you been contacted by any agency regarding an investigation?
Yeah, we're gonna move on past that.
Safe Houston is really one unsafe Houston is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
The primary power company provides a media center so that you guys are accessible to us. You never did that.
How is it you are connected to all these women and they all end up dead?
Investigative journalism starts with real people, you, me, all of us, facing tough challenges and standing up to those who game the system.
At KPRC 2 Investigates, there is nowhere we will not go to hold people accountable and uncover the truth.
We are here to find real solutions for real people who really need them and to drive change where it matters most.
Because we live here too, and it's about making our community a better place for everyone.
Today, we're opening our journalist notebook, taking you inside some of our biggest stories this year and giving you a look at why we chose to take them on.
I'm Mario Diaz, and we are going to start with a massive story that affected more than 250,000 Houstonians. To give you some perspective, it's enough people to fill up NRG Stadium nearly 4 times, all because more than 264,000 criminal cases were suspended in the city of Houston dating back to 2016. The reason? HPD did not have enough officers to investigate all the cases, including 4,400 sexual assault cases involving women and children. After KPRC 2 Investigates began pressuring Chief Troy Finner for answers, the fallout was huge. Roughly a dozen members of HPD's leadership, including Chief Finner, resigned, retired, or were moved.
It made me sick, as I mentioned, when I saw the last email, but I don't have time to be sick. I have to make a decision based on all the information that I'd received.
Houston Mayor John Whitmire referencing a 2018 email discussing the use of the controversial suspended lack of personnel code that KPRC 2 Investigates showcased on Tuesday. The email not only shows now former HPD Chief Troy Finner looped in, but also responding to the email.
It was the final straw. I think that can certainly be an honest statement, but it was on top of the Hatcher letter and the backlog, and I could go on and on and on.
The Hatcher letter that Mayor Whitmire is referring to is what KPRC 2 Investigates uncovered and reported last Friday. A complaint letter to Chief Finner from Executive Assistant Chief Chandra Hatcher that launched the investigation into the suspended cases. Hatcher writes that she attended a 2021 meeting where the suspend code was discussed. However, as we uncovered and confirmed, Hatcher never attended that meeting. In fact, she wasn't even in Houston that day.
Mayor, you indicated the letter involving the Executive Assistant Chief Chandra Hatcher.
Mm-hmm.
You yourself indicating that she was in another place in the state of Texas while claiming she was part of a command staff meeting. Does Executive Assistant Chief Hatcher face any discipline?
Well, that's an active investigation that I'm not going to intervene in or speculate. I think it is unfortunate that once Chief Finner closed the investigation as to who knew what and when, it had to be reopened.
Whitmire also making it very clear that Executive Assistant Chief Hatcher is now being probed by HPD investigators.
Chief Hatcher's investigation is active as to the timing, content, and accuracy of her letter. That's being investigated. We ought to leave it alone. Let the department do its job. Chief Finner, with everything that's going on, chose to retire.
Mayor John Whitmire, realizing the department needed new blood, landed on former Texas Ranger Noe Diaz to lead a department that also is healing from a 2019 black eye because of a dirty narcotics cop turned convicted killer on Harding Street. To give you an idea of how this all started, it was based off a fake 911 call. Gerald Goins based this raid on lies, went into the home, and then continued to lie thereafter. Dennis Tuttle may have fired his gun 4 times, but they also said HPD fired more than 40 rounds inside of the Tuttle's home. Gerald Goins, a former decorated member of HPD Narcotics, has been found guilty this afternoon by a Harris County jury. It came down very quickly. It came down with conviction. You saw jurors that were very adamant this is the right verdict, and it surprised so many people.
Yeah, again, with the complexity of the jury charge and the lack of evidence of what went down in that house, I predicted from the day one when we first started talking that would be a hung jury or a not guilty, and obviously I was wrong. But the jury must have been angry at what they saw.
If you remember, back on the night of January 28th, 2019, you had HPD, Art Acevedo, saying, this man's a big hero. He's a big lug, a teddy bear. We all love him. And then you see him as a shell of a man being found guilty and sent to prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah, his health just appears to have dramatically declined from day one of this trial to now today.
The headline right now is that Gerald Goins will be going to Texas prison. The former HPD narcotics officer sentenced here in the last 20 minutes to 60 years in the case of Dennis Tuttle and Regina Nicholas, the 2 homeowners who were shot and killed after a deadly raid back in 2019 on a January night. They were made out to be enemies of police. It was all wrong. It was all made up. And the man who was responsible for it today has been sentenced to prison.
I'm Bill Spencer with KPRC 2 Investigates, and I'm here to tackle the tough stuff and hopefully make life a little easier for you. I'm all about helping people where it counts most, but what really gets me jacked up is helping you protect your hard-earned money and uncovering important tips that can save you time, stress, and of course, cash.
So base times height times length equals area.
At home in Kingwood, Wayne Taylor helps his 13-year-old grandson, Jonathan, solve math problems.
Do you see how you do that?
But for several years now, bright-eyed Jonathan's biggest problem has been battling epilepsy, which, without daily medications, can cause him to suffer devastating grand mal seizures.
Last summer, he stopped taking his medication, unbeknownst to my wife and I, and he had 10 seizures. He falls, and he's on the floor, and it bothers me that I couldn't help him. You know you have to take these twice a day.
To protect the grandson he loves, Wayne makes sure that Jonathan takes the drug oxycarbazepine, a drug prescribed by his doctor that even with Wayne's health insurance was costing the family a lot of money.
$230 a month.
For this one medication?
For just one. And he has to have it. Bam!
That's when Wayne discovered a brand new company breaking the mold when it comes to selling prescription drugs. Scripco is a discount pharmacy membership club headquartered in Waco.
These are ready for shipping.
Founded by Zach Zeller and Mark McCormick, 2 Texans in the pharmacy business, sick and tired of seeing ridiculously big price variations.
You could have 10 different people come in for the same medication and all 10 of them would pay something different.
Scripco is a member-based online pharmacy that does not take insurance, and Zach says sells every single drug at wholesale cost. What Zach pays, you pay.
We make no money from medications. We only make money from the membership. That's it.
So you sell at the flat wholesale price, no markup at all?
We do not mark up anything.
The cost to join Scripco is $140 a year or $50 for 3 months. But you can use their online price tool for free.
So now I'm going to show you just exactly how much you can save with a Scripco membership on 3 different prescriptions I use every single day with the current prices I'm paying right now. A 90-day supply of finasteride for thicker hair, a 90-day supply of naproxen, an anti-inflammatory, and a 90-day supply of pantoprazole, a heartburn med. So, Zach, I want to save a lot of money on my prescriptions. I've just shown people what I'm paying. What can you do for me?
I'm going to save you a lot of money. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'll show you right here. So on the finasteride, for a 90-day supply, you're $3.60. On the pantoprazole, for a 90-day supply, you're $2.70. And on the naproxen, for a 90-day supply, you're $5.40, for a total of $11.70.
$11.70 for a 90-day supply, 3 months on all 3 of those drugs. You know, Zach, I got to tell you, I'm paying about $135 for my 3-month supply of those drugs. You're going to get it for me for $11.70?
Delivered to your door for free, baby.
With Scripco, Karen Francis, a business analyst from Cold Spring, went from paying $123 a month for 3 prescription drugs to $120 a month.
I was astonished by the pricing.
And after joining Scripco, Wayne went from paying $230 a month to just $27 a month. A savings of over $200 a month, more than $2,400 a year.
Is this the same drug that he was taking before?
It is from the same manufacturer.
And is your grandson doing just as well on this medication as the old one?
There is no difference at all.
Such a great story. And remember, if you missed any of it, we have it on our website, clicktohouston.com. Now, of course, the Taylors are just one family, but I make it a mission to help as many families every year as I possibly can. That's why I created the Spencer Solves a team in the first place. And the people who will always be family to me, those that I serve, are our veterans.
Watch closely now, because this is important, life-saving work. These mechanics aren't just working on a car.
We gotta go get you checked out by the doctor.
They're basically rebuilding former Army Sergeant and now mother of 4 Lanice McCaskill's Honda minivan, the only transportation Lanice and her family have, and the reason they're now forced to walk everywhere.
It was very dangerous. I have kids in the car. It's me in the car. You know, yes, it's very dangerous. And it's also dangerous for other drivers when your steering wheel just will lock up. It would literally like lock.
Lanice and her husband bought that Honda minivan after the family's former van was totaled by a red light running driver who slammed into Lanice and the family. In fact, Lanice's husband was badly injured in that wreck and couldn't work for months. Now, struggling mightily financially, the family just can't afford to get this rolling death trap fixed.
We have doctor's appointments all the time because my 3-year-old was just diagnosed with autism. So we wouldn't be able to make it to doctor's appointments. I wouldn't be able to pick up my kids to and from school.
But the worst part is that Lanice is about to start the Houston Police Academy to become a cop. But she can't do that if she can't get there. And that's where the Spencer Solves It team comes in. Working with Christian Brothers Automotive, we're replacing everything that's wrong with this thing. We're talking the wheel axles, the struts, the brakes, the entire rack and pinion steering system, the engine mounts, and the AC system.
Regarding the problems with the rack and pinion steering system, was this something that could have killed that family?
Absolutely. It's not something that I would have wanted my family to be in.
Okay, so now it's time to deliver this like new ride to Leonise.
It is Bill driving it. It's blowing cool air. We have AC, y'all.
Does that look brand new or what?
It does. They completely redid everything. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. God bless you.
Bill isn't the only one who likes helping out families and telling their stories. I'm Joel Eisenbaum. Let me tell you about the Mounts family. They had to deal with a nightmare, poison, in the form of mercury seeping out of a busted jar their kid broke while playing. It forced the entire family to move out and come up with a way to make their home livable again. Their problems sprung from this small, inconspicuous container curiously left behind by their home's former owner.
The man that lived here, he did things like he repaired the antiques and he made stained glass.
That man has since died, and what he left behind has caused a nightmare for the Mounts family. April 12th of this year, hazmat crews descended on the Mounts' new family home in the College Park subdivision of Deer Park. And in this plastic container, nearly 20 pounds of poison, mercury, that had now spilled.
Our son had found it and thought that it would be an interesting toy. He poured it into another container and actually spilled it in the garage.
In their report, the Harris County Fire Marshal's office wrote, quote, reoccupation of the home was not advised until the home could be properly cleaned and the mercury removed. The Mounts home was now filled with the same poison that's responsible for so-called Mad Hatter's disease.
At higher levels, we know that it can affect the nervous system and the kidneys, and in worst case scenarios, the digestive system and maybe even the respiratory system.
So the Mounts not only moved out, they tossed their furniture, including heirlooms, ripped up their carpeting, repainted their walls, and they did it themselves. But there was still a problem.
They had an official request for Harris County Hazmat to come back out and test, and it was denied.
We tried, we found someone who could do this remediation of their home. It would have been almost as expensive as the house itself.
Commissioner Adrian Garcia worked hard on this problem. Garcia's team, with help from the Harris County Fire Marshal's office, secured a very expensive mercury vapor testing device for the family to borrow, along with how to use it. And so off we went. Turns out ripping your house apart can fix a mercury problem, or so it appears. During Alton Mount's testing, only a single corner in the garage showed any signs of mercury vapor. And that reading on a machine called a Jerome was low. The Mounts family will finally be moving back in.
I don't think that we would have got this Jerome meter here if it hadn't been for you guys.
So while the Mounts are happy to get into their home, some families in Northwest Houston are not too happy with the houses that are right next to them. Let's start off with the Sex House. It was one of more than a dozen problematic homes residents say were used by squatters. And it just so happened to be on the site where supposedly high-speed rail will be coming through. On a casual drive through the neighborhood, you may not even notice, but longtime residents of this Northwest Harris County neighborhood sure do. You were sort of an original.
I built my house from the ground up.
And you've had enough.
I've had enough.
Oh, there are problems here, all right. Dozens of homes are trashed, and some of them are now being used for, well,
it's the Sex House.
In the White Oak Falls subdivision near 290 and Huffmeister. When you say we have a lot of people that don't belong to the neighborhood, what do you mean by that?
Squatters.
Actual squatters?
Yes, actual squatters.
About 3 years ago, 40 homes in this neighborhood were sold to a single buyer. And you've heard of that buyer. It's the Texas Central Railroad. That's right, the high-speed rail folks. And their proposed rail line up the 290 corridor runs right through the properties they bought in White Oak Falls. Only there were a few holdouts who did not sell. Like Nestor Cortez, who worked hard to buy his home just a few years earlier and didn't want to move. He sure does now, though. You really feel like the neighborhood's turning into a disaster?
Yeah.
Many of the homes in question appear to have no electricity. The new and often changing residents seem substantially less concerned with HOA rules. These houses look rough, and original homeowners are watching their property values sink.
In 2 years, I lost $20,000.
Things are just unsettled around here. And this particular gentleman, who has the exact same right to record us as we do him, didn't like us poking around.
You're harassing.
Harassing? No.
Yeah.
Why?
They might not answer.
Well, you're living in a house you don't own or pay rent for.
I do pay rent.
Do you? Who do you pay your rent to?
Why you ask me those questions?
Because we think you're squatting in the house. We're just
That's
curious.
Not squatting. Who you work for?
I work for Channel 2. I told you that like 6 times.
And what's your name?
Joel Eisenbaum. Told you that 3 times. Howdy. Channel 2. How's it going? You guys manage White Oak Falls? The company hired by White Oak Falls to manage the subdivision had no comment for us. That's the long and short of this visit. But the HOA president who employs them did text us and told us, among other things, quote, "We as the HOA have been ineffective in the sense that there are still squatters in the properties. However, it's not due to lack of effort," end quote. The HOA has never sued Texas Central Railroad or placed even a lien on any of their homes for violations. That legal work can get expensive and may not truly fix the problem. Eviction suits can only be brought by landlords, and the landlord here is planning to flatten these places anyway. Quote, "We are aware of issues involving Texas Central-owned properties in the White Oak Falls neighborhood in Harris County. We've started and completed evictions on several properties. Texas Central is working diligently with local authorities to address these issues," they told us. Words from a company with a website that seemingly hasn't been updated in years. Texas Central Railroad has gone nowhere fast, at least not yet. And in the meantime,
I don't feel safe for my family, for my grandkids, and not even for myself.
it's easy to say, why don't you just move? Why don't you move while interest rates are high? Why don't you move while your property values are nosediving? The options for residents here are tough. And those same residents, the residents who care about their neighborhood, are asking, why don't you just move, Texas Central Railroad?
Welcome back. I'm Robert Arnold. The border between Mexico and Texas is going to remain a hot-button item well into the new year, and drugs won't be the only thing our government is trying to curb. Human smuggling is another massive crime. In the last 3 years, more than 7,300 Texans were charged with smuggling.
131 southbound, just off 90.
You got him? Bo? Is that your driver? He's not even old enough to buy a beer.
I could have sworn you got the driver's seat.
But 19-year-old Kevin Sanchez is facing a world of trouble on this back road in Kinney County.
The driver said he wasn't driving, but I saw him get out of the driver's seat, so I'm clearly lying.
Galveston County Sheriff's deputies working along the border arrested Sanchez. His 3 passengers were handed over to Border Patrol, all believed to be in the country illegally. Do you remember me? Sanchez lives on Houston's west side and didn't want to talk when we knocked on his door, but he called us later.
Why didn't you stop for the police when they tried to pull you over? And why did your passengers try and run?
Sanchez said he was scared police would shoot him, and he claims the 3 men in his car were just hitchhikers he was helping get to Houston. He's now facing charges of smuggling and running from police.
We've had people from Louisiana, Florida, California, New York that have made their way to the border to smuggle illegal immigrants.
Smuggling is not a new problem in Texas, but Lieutenant Chris Olivares says there has been a shift in the type of person willing to cash in on the smuggling trade.
And these are people that are not your typical criminals. They don't have criminal backgrounds. These are first offenders.
According to Texas Department of Public Safety data, more than 7,300 people have been arrested on smuggling charges since the start of Operation Lone Star in March 2021.
We've arrested people that were attorneys in the medical field, even soldiers. We've arrested one of our own National Guard soldiers that was involved in human smuggling.
And DPS shows those arrested range in age from 13 to 77.
How many of your clients are under 18 or under 21?
I'd say it's probably about 35% are that young.
Douglas Ahern spent more than 16 years with Customs and Border Protection before becoming a defense attorney who has now represented dozens of people charged with smuggling.
Are you getting more clients?
Oh, yes. Yeah, right now my alien smuggling cases outweigh drug cases.
How are they recruiting these young kids?
I would compare it to an intelligence operation for recruiting human sources of information. And they find out, exactly what it is that motivates them to maybe want to make that decision, whether it be drugs or sex or money or whatever the case may be. A lot of times I've seen them communicated through Xbox, PlayStation, Snapchat.
They know how to target a much younger audience by using social media.
Recruiters also create the illusion of low risk. Pick up 2 or 3 people and drive them from one city to the next. You never cross the border.
There is a clear lack of appreciation for the consequences.
I'm not from here. I don't know nothing about no smuggling.
We met Tyrus Nichols after his arraignment on smuggling charges in Kinney County. He said a friend offered him $500 to drive 3 people to San Antonio, although he was a little fuzzy on his Texas geography.
Where'd you pick him up at?
It was in El Paso in a ranch. And when I got to San Antonio, he was like, okay, here go the address to where you're going. And I'm like, okay. And so I went straight there.
And that was in El Paso?
I guess so. Eagle Pass.
Oh, no. That's Eagle Pass is here.
I don't like. I don't know. I'm not familiar with this. Like, I just know Eagle Pass, El Paso. That's all I know.
I didn't do anything wrong, and I've lost so much over this.
Matthew Phillips is fighting his smuggling charges.
I didn't cross any borders. Nobody was smuggled. Nobody was hidden. Nobody evaded. I mean, there was no law broken.
Phillips is a traveling merchandiser from Houston. He says all he did was pick up hitchhikers while going from Eagle Pass to San Antonio and believes he's a victim of overzealous policing.
I saw some people and I thought, they're probably in trouble. Middle of nowhere, it's dark. So I pulled over and they said they're going to San Antonio, and I thought it would be great because that's where I was going and it would keep me awake.
His legal battle is costly. He lost his car and he spent close to $20,000 on bail and an attorney.
There's the stigma that goes with being a human smuggler, which I don't deserve. My own daughter has told me that she wouldn't talk to me anymore. I mean, it's a big deal. It's decimated me. Take a moment and scan this QR code. It will take you to the 2-time Emmy and Telly Award-winning docuseries, The Evidence Room. This is our true crime series because Southeast Texas is no stranger to dark and sadistic tales, ones that have gripped the imaginations of Houstonians as much as any true crime fan across the country. Our goal, bringing you into the lives of those affected by crime, like those in the long hallway of Santa Fe High School, or speaking to the man suspected of being behind the Texas killing fields.
Welcome back. I'm Amy Davis. Water bills drained a lot of Houstonians this past year. My investigation into those problems was twofold. We've looked into inaccurate and shockingly high water bills, a problem Houston Mayor John Whitmire is vowing to fix. We're still following that progress and helping you when you need it. The other part of our drained investigation revealed major corruption. Patrice Lee was a manager at the Houston Water Department. She was fired after my investigation into how she was steering city water contracts to her family and friends. Now Lee is in jail facing 6 felony charges, including bribery and engaging in organized criminal activity.
Everything was flowing like water. What happened is when Amy Davis came out and broke the story, the city got in a panic and stopped everything.
You're listening to Patrice Lee defending herself before a civil service hearing officer in January, explaining why she lied to an OIG investigator and told him Andrew Thomas was not her brother.
I had a meeting with Jeff. I left. I wrestled with my conscience. I knew I lied. I sent an email and told him the truth. That was what happened.
Why would you lie to OIG about your relationship with your brother?
Because I was scared. I didn't know. Like, I'm dealing with millions and millions of dollars.
Scared of what?
The repercussions. Like, I didn't know, like, for instance, I didn't know if I would be fired. I didn't know because rumors were going around and people are calling when you're dealing with money, they were saying that I could be indicted, this type of stuff. And I'm like, I didn't steal anything. I wasn't stealing. Like, no money came to me.
Patrice Lee is still awaiting trial along with her brother, former city employee Danielle Hertz, and 4 city contractors charged with bribery. Unfortunately, corruption doesn't stop there in the nation's 4th largest city. Recently, I've been looking at contracts with the Houston Housing Authority, where we found questionable contracts and a culture of secrecy.
Oh my gosh, back at it again.
Trucker hats, loungewear, men's and women's clothing made by Bragger Company out of Chicago, Illinois. The company's Instagram page describes Bragger as design and fashion, an aesthetically clean, classic, and confident brand. So is it any wonder owner Jonathan Stevens wanted to bring his fashion sense thousands of miles to Houston for a chance to install window ACs for the Houston Housing Authority?
That's odd because you would expect to want to hire companies that had the experience to do the job, and you would want to go local. Houston's a huge city. We have plenty of companies that can do good AC work. So why would you have to go to Illinois?
Houston City Council member Julian Ramirez is asking a question we couldn't get the Houston Housing Authority to answer. But we did pull together some documents that provide some insight. Take a look. Jonathan Stevens signed the contract for Bragger Company to install window ACs on September 15th. On October 4th, a housing authority procurement manager sends this letter to Stevens. HHA has discovered that Bragger Company is not a registered business in the state of Texas. He wrote Stevens must provide proof the company is registered here or the contract will be terminated. October 9th, Jonathan Stevens registers his company with the Secretary of State, and on the line to explain the purpose or purposes the company proposes to pursue, Stevens boldly wrote, contract business with the Houston Housing Authority. Can you at all address those? You're the director. While he wouldn't talk with us on camera, Houston Housing Authority CEO David Northern did meet with me off camera. Northern, who is from the Chicago area, told me he knows Jonathan Stevens, but he didn't say how. HHA General Counsel Janine Cox told me simply knowing someone doesn't constitute a conflict of interest. But why? We found another connection. In 2023, Northern hired Marquise Barnes, also from Chicago, to work as HHA's construction manager. And contractor Kevin Calvin, owner of TPMG Construction, says Barnes asked him to do the work for Bragger Company.
They told me that if I would play ball and participate and bid a certain way, that they would tell me what the bid numbers were, that they would actually make sure I got some other contracts.
This letter from Stevens in Chicago to the HHA asks them to release work materials and checks to Kevin Calvin here in Houston. When we reached out to Marquise Barnes to ask him if he knew Jonathan Stevens of Bragger Company before Stevens got the HHA contract, Marquise wouldn't answer. But these pictures and videos on Barnes' own Facebook page seem to answer for him. This is Marquise Barnes showing off his Bragger Company apparel in January, 7 months before the HHA contract was signed.
I guarantee you we've got plenty of MWBEAC companies in Houston that can do that work. And so it raises some suspicions why this company in Illinois was chosen over all these companies in Houston, MWBE firms that would be able to do this work.
I did call Jonathan Stevens in Chicago. He told me he had no comment about the contract and hung up. Since we started our reporting on HHA, President and CEO David Northern has resigned. The board is doing an internal audit on all of the contracts that he's connected to. Well, that does it for us and the KPRC2 Investigates team. Remember, you can reach us at any time using the below email address, investigates@kprc.com. We're always looking for ways to connect and help with whatever you have going on, providing solutions that allow all of us to enjoy this great city we call home. Thanks for making us your hometown station.